Hi, it's Jason Gorber from ThatShelf.com. I just got out of a film called Father and Soldier, and I'm actually sitting here outside the Debussy, but if you see behind me, there's a gazillion people in tuxedos that are about to get into the Top Gun Maverick show, and behind me all the boats are like still honking their horns after all the fireworks that just went off. We got a couple clips of that, so it might be a little bit loud, but nonetheless this is part of the spirit of Cannes. Father and Soldier is an interesting film. It sort of takes place obviously during the First World War, and it absolutely delves into France's colonialist past and those that actually fought, often reluctantly, for their colonial masters. We've seen plenty of war films before. We've seen plenty of stories that sort of do their best to sort of articulate what's actually going on during these intense times of conflict. But what ended up happening, particularly for those Senegalese, is that their stories were simply not told, that they simply did not have the opportunity to be remembered in quite the same way as many of those that they fought alongside. And so what's really pretty terrific about this film is that it establishes it not in a way that feels sort of cheap or that they're just sort of milking in a general interest for what's actually taking place, but actually doing it in a pretty terrific way. The performances are great. The way that the action scenes are shot, it's done on a relatively low scope. This is not 1917. We don't have anything quite as grand as Roger Deakins shooting the thing, but nonetheless you actually get a real sense of place there. Many actors you will know from lots of other elements, lots of other international films, but I think that the way that it actually comes together as an ensemble is what's really fantastic. They really truly sort of embody themselves within the characters that they're playing, and you really believe their struggles and you believe the sort of challenges, not only between those that sort of are trying against all odds to actually make sense of an impossible situation, but those that might actually get sucked into the position of essentially finding a new family, finding a new way of actually being accepted in a way that they weren't necessarily. So it's a family story, it's a father-son story, it's a story of the history of France, it's a story that's desperate to be told. Does that make for a good film? I think it's a pretty good film. I think that it's definitely worth watching. I think that it's as I said, compelling enough to draw people in. It's certainly different than a lot of these type of films that you've seen simply because of the subject matter, but in many ways it's sort of comfortably the same, but well done. I mean, it joins a long echelon of those films that are war films but are also anti-war films. Look, Paths of Glory being a most obvious example, but the way that it actually all ends up playing out, I think, is certainly not at the level of something like a Kubrick, but certainly something above and beyond what we traditionally get. And again, we've had so many Second World War films, and in a funny way, the Great War, the First World War, is almost underrepresented. I think we're seeing a real new, weirdly, resurgence of stories going back there, because a general recognition that as much as the Second World War had sort of completely defined the 20th century, obviously the Second World War, by definition, is so fundamentally reshaped by what took place in the First World War. You have some of the greatest films ever made. I mentioned Paths of Glory, things like Lawrence of Arabia, that sort of touch on the more grand socio-political elements, but the actual personal stories, the actual direct stories, things like 1917 and this film, I think, absolutely speak to it in a way that, for me, I found truly engaging. So there we are, at the Cannes Film Festival. I'm Jason Gorber for ThatShelf.com. Please follow us on social media. Check out all the stuff we got going on Instagram. It's a very big day today, so we'd love to hear what you think. Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next video. All the best. Take care.